What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Replit Live. My name is Raymmar, and today we are going to go deep on the idea of version control. So we're going to explain what version control is, how to connect to GitHub, how to invite collaborators. We're going to just kind of go all over the place as it relates to managing the versions of code in your project. And what does that actually mean? What is version control? How does it work in Replit? What do you need that for? And so, as usual, we are going to bring some slides up. We got Manny coming in the scene. What's up, Manny? How you doing today, brother?
Hey, how's it going, dude? How are you?
What's going on? Okay, so yeah, we've got an exciting presentation today. We're gonna get into it. We're not gonna spend a ton of time bouncing around doing lots of other things, but I do want to talk a little bit about these community profiles. We launched them last week, and they connect right into this GitHub concept, right? And so, if you think about how some of this started, even where the inspiration for these profiles comes from, it's this idea of showing proof of work. And GitHub was one of the first places to kind of do this. And what you're doing every time you make a checkpoint here, or what each one of these things is essentially a commit. It's a change to your project. And those changes become the different versions of your project. And so today we're going to explain kind of how this plays out, what this is about, what you can use this for, and really make you feel more confident as a builder inside of Replit. Because when you can use this stuff, when you can understand how to go back and forth and kind of time travel inside of your projects, you'll start to feel more confident that even if you make a mistake, you can go back in time. Or let's say you change something and you want to go back and see what changes have been made. You can do those easily using this type of workflow. So if you haven't done so already, go ahead and head over to replit.com. We're going to make one final plug, replit.com/community, and claim your profile. If you haven't done this already, last week we shared a ton of was it Friday? We had a bunch of folks that kind of shared their profile and took home $100 in credits for sharing their profile. That promotion's over, but you can still feel free to come and claim this profile and share this with the crowd. And yeah, show off your work, show off what you've been working on, and tag us in your posts. We like to see this. Manny, thoughts on profiles? Last week we launched this thing. Lots of stuff happening in the community. It was kind of cool to see everyone sharing. Obviously, people are excited to show their work. I think that's part of the fun of this, and we're going to explain why that's relevant. You brought up some good points here, so here in a second we'll talk a little bit about that. But what are your general thoughts going into new week, Tuesday, deep dive on version control? Talk to me a little bit.
I am so happy to have this as a vibe coder. So some context, I've been in the tech space for some time, and I was always a little bit jealous of technical people having this great Git profile, showing their activity, and for context for everybody, that was essentially developers or technical people's resume. Even not necessarily LinkedIn, not necessarily resume. They would show their Git profile to everybody and say, like, here's what I've been working on, here's how I've been active, here are my projects, and that's what people shared. And the fact that now I have this as a vibe coder, I think is really neat. I love the metrics that you have for us, the assets to share. I know a lot of people were loving this last week. We had a bit of a viral moment. Everybody sharing their stats. Somebody mentioned that Replit completely took over the timeline for them because they just kept seeing everybody posting their numbers, and so got a lot of great stories out of it. And we talked to some folks on Friday, from like heavy duty 10.0 builders to folks that were just starting off, about their process and what they're doing. And so overall, I think this has been a huge hit.
Yeah, and it's I agree. I think ever since I started my journey vibe coding, I kind of wanted something like this. Um, Especially because I had just gotten into GitHub. And you see all these like lit up GitHub profiles, and it
Yeah,
just shows
right. Yeah.
activity, it shows consistency. It's one of those things, like you said, it becomes like this professional resume to
Hmm.
just show work over time. Um, and it's not about having like the most lit up graph, right? And it's not necessarily about having all the green stars, because what you'll notice is that in different parts of your career, different parts of what you're doing, you'll have more or less work inside of here. It's more about showing just the track record of consistent output and that you're doing things and that you've been around for a while. And so being able to see that over time is a big deal. And this is just a front-facing thing, right, that we've kind of built on top of this version control system and this idea of checkpoints and this idea of really Git. And so that being said, like, let's just go into what we're going to cover today. So I'm going to go top to bottom. What is version control? How it works inside of Replit. We're going to talk about checkpoints equaling commits. So what is a checkpoint? What is a commit? We'll explore the Git pane inside of Replit and roll back, different project states. So I'm going to show you how to time travel a little bit inside of Replit. Connecting GitHub and other providers. So I'll show you that you can link up, Replit to, again, GitHub or other, Git providers. What you'll find out is that Git is just kind of like a tooling system. It's basically just a version control system that's open source. And then there's other providers like GitHub that let you kind of manage this type of thing. We'll invite collaborators and talk a little bit about, what a branch and what parallel tasks look like and how that maps to Git inside of Replit. And then finally, we'll close with looking at specific file history, and I'll show you something that probably most of you have never seen in Replit. So let's get started with it. So what is version control? We talked about this a little bit. Every time you make a change to a file inside of your project, essentially there's a snapshot taken in that moment, right? So every time you see the agent go, hey, we made a checkpoint, basically what that's doing is it's logging all of the changes that happened in that moment, right? So you're basically saying, if you think about, like software in the good old days, you always had to press a save button, right? There's always like a click to save or save as or do whatever. So Git is really just in the background. Each of those checkpoints is a save point, right? It's a moment where you just basically saying, hey, let's take a snapshot of this entire project and let's compare it to the snapshot we took previous, and let's see what's different here, right? And so that's storing what's different there is what's called a diff, right? And inside of Replit, and we'll show you here in a second, we will show you that you can kind of look at these diffs and you can look at the differences between what the file is doing. And I know a lot of vibe coders, it's all about like, hey, we're just gonna vibe. We're not looking at the code. Today, we're gonna look at the code. We're gonna look at file changes. We're gonna nerd out like we haven't in a while on a deep dive here. So anyway, so Git is this system that kind of manages these changes to your project. This allows you to recall and restore any earlier version of your project. And again, this works with any Git provider. Replit has its own version of Git running internally, but you can connect that to other sources, and that becomes useful to collaborate with other people, pull in other projects from external places, and also back up your code files, right? Like a lot of people ask about who owns my code when I'm building in Replit. Well, you own the code, and that can be exported and stored and saved in other places. Again, whatever Git provider you like to use or you want to use as part of that. And then there is a command line. We won't go into that today. You don't need it, but it is available there. A lot of senior technical folks work with Git inside the command line. So what we're going to show you in Replit today is a UI, like a physical UI on managing Git. But all this stuff, and Git is like a deep, deep rabbit hole. You could get lost as much as you want learning all the different Git commands, push, pull, merge, rebase. Like those are very basic things that we're going to cover. But there's lots of other things that you could learn about Git if you wanted to go deeper that just won't be necessary for us as vibe coders. But again, if you start going down this road and want to, get totally lost, then, well, you can do that. Okay, so 4 ways in 1, Git repository underneath. This is basically kind of what's happening at each level, right? And so the agent's creating these checkpoints automatically. So as you go, the agent's kind of doing that work. You'll see the checkpoint. We'll show you that here in a second. Every one of those checkpoints becomes a place that you can restore, change, again, go back in time to. The pane, the place in Replit where you're going to see this is inside of your tools panel, inside of your tabs. So, you can come down here and click that Git pane, and it will open that up, and you can see that inside of here. So again, as we go, that's where you will interact with it. The terminal I mentioned, again, we really won't use this too much, but anything you can do inside the UI, you could do with terminal commands. And then I'm also going to show you how to look at the file history, the granular changes. Again, I don't think this is something that most people have seen or know about in Replit. It's not something you're going to use a ton, but it's a cool feature. It's something that's there. And again, if you're looking to explore code or understand changes in the code, it's a good thing to look at. So, okay. So checkpoints equals commits. We talked about this a little bit. Agent creates a checkpoint at each logical milestone. So that's the place, that's the stamp in time. Each checkpoint is a real git commit with an AI generated summary. So what this means is that the agent is going to write a little recap. And again, we're going to look at this here in a second. And it's going to show you like, here's what happened in this checkpoint, feature level granularity, and you don't have to do anything, right? Like the agent's just going to do all of this for you. And if you're interested in learning more about this, in the docs, there's a handful of pages that you can go to in the Replit docs that will walk you through in detail if you need more as we go through this. So let's just get started and jump into the Git pane. Before we do this, Manny, any questions coming in that we should address? Anything early here that we should just kind of pause on?
I've got a question on the community profiles. If you want to wait on that, we can do that. And then some comments here around whether or not we can have agents set a checkpoint. So can you ask agents to set a checkpoint? Is that relevant? And then someone that wants to learn about forking and branching, etc. So like if you start a new project or a new
Yeah.
feature, how do you handle that? You may already go into that. If you want to tackle that now or later.
Let's wait on the community profiles question, but let's answer some of the other ones if we can real quick. So the question was, remind me about creating a manual checkpoint, and what was the other one?
Branching and forking. So if you want to create a version of like an existing project and you want to build a new feature.
Yeah, so the first thing, let's open up the Git pane or the Git tab. So how we get there is we're going to click the plus button. You can type Git, or you can come to your tools panel and go down to the Git tab. And what you'll see here is all of the different checkpoints that have kind of ever been made on your project. And any one of these can kind of be clicked and you can see what was modified, right? So like, let's say I want to make a manual change. In order for me to make a manual commit, right? So right now the agent makes all of the checkpoints, makes all of the changes. So if I look here, checkpoint made 9 hours ago, this just kind of happens. I have the option to roll back if I want. I can see the changes, right? Or I can preview this, and this will actually create a preview deployment that will open up, and I can view that. I'll show you another way that you can view this here too. So right here, basically this is telling me that at this commit, we added drag and drop functionality to reorder the lower thirds. There's a commit ID, right? So there's this commit ID that you could copy here if you wanted to, again, reference this in other places. And then it talks a little bit about the change that was made. So what you'll see here is that these were the files that were changed. If I open them up, I can see the diff. We talked about what's the difference. So this is showing me the difference between what was there before versus what's here now. And I can't really make a commit until there's a change in a file, right? So let me just open something. Let me go to the preview here. I'm going to select an element. Let's see, something that is, let's go here. And I'm just going to go to the code in this. And if you're not aware of how I did that, when I click with an element selector on an element, and it gives me the pane here, the design panel, at the top, it gives me that element on the page. And if I click on that, it's going to take me into the code, right? And so I can see here where it says browser sources now. This is exactly what I was looking at, browser sources here. So if I were to come in here and change this to browser source, let's just get rid of plural, just for an example. I'm going to make a small change to the file, right? So I just made a small manual change to the file. if I now go to Git, what we're going to see is there is now a change in my commit history. So what this is telling me is this admin dashboard.tsx file now has a modification, right? It's been modified. That's what this M stands for. And so I could discard this change, or I could stage those changes, or I could just say commit, and it's a remove S from label, right? And then I could just stage this and commit all the changes. Now, if I go back to my preview, what I'll see is this is now, singular browser source, which we'll want to change here in a second because we have multiple browser sources. Let me refresh. Browser source, so we can see that here. And then if I go back to my Git pane, what I'm going to see is that I have a manual commit that I can do here, right? So you can create manual commits anytime you want. You just have to have a change to commit. You can't just like make a commit, you can't just push something and make a commit. So oftentimes, you can find a small file, and any change will do. Like literally any change to the file or to the code structure or to the project itself will create a section like that, a branch like that. So let me go back to another commit here, and what we'll see is what was changed. So every time I click on one of these, I can see what was changed. So again, if I come over here, it's going to tell me, again, here's what was changed. It's going to show me the diff, and it's really just going to show me, hey, browser sources to browser source, right? So I can see the difference in this diff as I'm looking at this. So hopefully that answers the question about making manual commits inside of here, because this is good to do every once in a while. What I'll also do is I might come back and make a commit like this, or I might come and see a commit here and want to like I might mark something, everything works here, right? I might make a small change and just be like, everything works, whatever in my description, so that I know as I'm scrolling through here, because sometimes you're not really sure like where exactly do you want to roll back to. And so, yeah, having like a real clear, everything works right now, or profiles published properly, or whatever your milestone you want to remember, you can kind of name that to a manual commit there. So.
And Raymmar, can you just highlight once more where to get that commit ID? So you're just clicking into one of these commits, and then on the top left-hand side, you'll see the commit ID pop up.
Yeah, and you can see it as you scroll through
Oh,
here.
yep.
So as you hover over, you'll see it says view, and then that commit ID. And then if you come back, you can come back and copy that. And then again, the agent does a good job of kind of telling you, here's what's happening at each commit. This didn't used to be like this. The old commits were not like this. They were, and even the titles sometimes would just not be great. And so this is really good to have detailed title for your commit, as well as a description, because if you want to go back in time, it helps to be able to kind of see what's happening here. Go ahead.
And for someone that tried learning to program before Replit agent, oh my gosh, this is such a like a night and day kind of feeling, because we used to have to do this manually. Do you remember? Like you said, like commit the change. You'd have to write the comments like, oh, here's what I changed and everything. Then you'd have to push it. Then there'd be a conflict. Then you'd have to reset stuff. Like it was just so painful. And now it's just automatic.
Yeah, I remember early on, I got myself into some trouble on a project because I was playing with Git commands that just didn't need to be played with. And like I was rebasing the app and doing certain things, and like it was just like, oh my goodness. And then I found myself having to like force push, like everything, because like everything just got out of sync and there was all sorts of conflicts. So everything worked on my end, but there was like another version that had some conflicts that I didn't even know how to resolve. And so you're just like, okay, I'm just going to force push everything. And what that means is like, forget about what's over in the Git panel. Just take what my live code is and override everything.
Right.
And that can be a dangerous moment too, because, So anyway, yes, you can get yourself into a lot of trouble. But, and Manny, you and I were talking about this a little bit beforehand, that like even rolling back, which, we can talk about here in a second, is not something I do a ton anymore because the agent has gotten so good. And so this is not something that I find myself doing as much as I used to, but when I need it, it's good to know exactly how to do it. So
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
I just feel like since Agent 4 launched, my rollbacks have gone like down to like almost like 0 now. Like I can't remember the last time I rolled back. Yeah, Agents has gone so good at taking care of tasks, and I just don't feel like I have to roll back anymore. Whereas before I used to have to roll back on a regular basis, like, oh, that's not right. Let me go back and change that. And so no, that's been a big change.
Yeah.
Um, a quick question for you, Raymmar. Okay, so it's kind of cool that it's listing the publisher or the author of the commit by agent and also when you do it manually. If you're working with other people, I'm assuming that it's going to like their manual commits is going to list it. But if the commits that Replit agent does on behalf of that other user, would it list it under their changes somehow, or is it still Replit agent?
Yeah, so just like they would come in as me here, it would come in as them as users. So if I
Mm,
invite somebody, which we'll talk about a little bit later, into a project, their commits will also just show up as them in here. But also sometimes it's the agent. And I'm not really always sure why or how they make that decision, to be honest. Um, so there may be some questions that I can't answer about Git. Just in that regards. Like, I don't know. Obviously, publishing the app is always going to be the agent, but remove redundant mode selector is Replit agent, and then this task is Raymmar. So I'm not sure what they are using to go through that. I don't know if it's like high level tasks, like if it's tasks that I plan out versus tasks that happen in the main agent thread. So yeah, there's a little bit of maybe I should go ask somebody in product
no
about.
worries. I just curious because like now like one of the big things about Replit now is just how easy it allows you to collaborate with folks, and that's
Hmm.
great. But you might want to look back and it's like who made this change. Might want to track it
Yes.
on the Git history. So maybe that's a feature request that we can have for
Well, it will
folks.
show up if it's somebody else that created a task. So if somebody else started this
Yes.
task and there's a full task with it, it will show you who did that and it will attribute it to them. And each collaborator gets, their own agent thread inside of here. So it will kind of organize that for you. Um,
Marco has a good question here. Does when you save Git commits, does that take up any tokens or is that just like
no, when you're
commands?
pushing to Git and when you're kind of syncing those things, it's not using tokens. No, even
Perfect.
restoring and rolling back is not using
Mm,
tokens.
mm-hmm.
Um,
Awesome.
so, I wanted to show. Okay, so I want to basically show. And you mentioned something about branches and switching between. You really won't do that here, but you can see the different branches, right? So I'm still in the Git pane in Replit here. And what you'll see at the top is I'm in main, and then you'll see some different branches here, right? And some of these are sub repls, some of these are parallel tasks in the background. Some of these are the agent doing its thing. But if you wanted to create a new branch, you could do that. We are not going to go into how to do that because that's a more manual technical process. What you'll do if you wanted to create a branch in Replit is you just start a new task,
Right.
right? So you could come over, you click your little plus button, you start a new task, and what you'll see is now I'm inside of this new task, interface. I got my little X in the top right corner. You can see a
Mhm.
little glow behind, so that shows that I'm in a new task. And essentially, this creates a branch. This creates a fork of the project, including the development database, which allows me to then build, experiment with a new task. And I don't have to worry too much about going in and creating a branch and then merging that back. It's going to kind of happen automatically inside of this. And if you want to learn more about that, go check out the episode we did recently on running parallel tasks because we showed a deep run through of how to have like a bunch of agents and things running in the background.
Mhm.
Um, Go ahead.
And one other thing to add for context, the way we used to use this before Replit Agent was that if I wanted to work on a new feature on an existing code base and I was working with other folks, I would just grab a copy of that and build out my feature without necessarily committing it to everybody and work on that until I felt like it was finished. And then I would push that back to main for everybody to see. And so we'd have to do that manually and then like handle the merge commits and now agents handling all of that automatically. It's just a new task that when I'm ready, you see it like it's being pushed to main when I feel it's good to go.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like having different branches, and then what happens when Manny's working on a branch, Raymar's working on a branch, and then we touch the same piece of code, and then those have to merge, like that creates that merge conflict where it's like, hey, Raymar says the code should look like this, Manny says the code should look like this. Which one should we listen to? It's hard to kind of decide. And so then it starts looking at like, who committed it first and whatever. But again, having Replit manage all of this is a kind of a big deal to simplify the technical side of things. Okay, exploring the Git pane, we've kind of explored all of that. If I'm connected to GitHub here, so if I wanted to, I could push this branch as a subREPL, right? I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that at all. What I might do over here is I have another project that's already connected. The last time it was fetched was 3 months ago. So 2 things, we can push and we can pull and we can sync the changes, which does both, right? So it's going to push everything we have new and pull anything that changed in GitHub. This is where you can get into trouble if you're working with external collaborators. So let's say somebody else is connected to GitHub. They do make a branch. They go through a manual process. They do something, and then you pull that back into your project without them checking or verifying it. You could get into trouble. Maybe not, but again, you can restore back to that point. So I'm just going to show right here. You can see that this is connected to GitHub. This is a project that I have created. Actually, I think we created this live on stream. This is kind of a private chat app. That's kind of fun. And I made a change recently, so I'm going to go ahead and sync that to GitHub. Again, if you're not connected to GitHub, this is going to ask you to basically log in with GitHub, just like any of the OAuth providers. And it will usually ask you to confirm that auth for each time you create a push. And so there we go, sync changes. It published the app. There's no more changes to commit. And so anytime you have commits that are not pushed, and I think if we go back to my profile here, we might see some more stars light up. Okay, maybe not. I haven't really been syncing my Replit projects with GitHub, so that's why my activity graph on GitHub looks so light, even though my Replit profile looks
And
super active.
this comes up quite a bit. And people say like, "Hey, if I build on Replit, does the code belong to me?" Like, yes, all the code that you build on Replit, that's yours. And if you want a backup of that code, it's pretty straightforward to do what Raymmar just did: sync it to GitHub and have it there. The other reason why you might want to have it there is if you want to share with someone else that maybe isn't on Replit, you can share the Git repo. And then also, if you want to build it, if you want to bring that elsewhere and work on it elsewhere outside of Replit, you can always just link to that Git repo and bring in all of that context. So Raymmar, this won't automatically sync, right? Like if you want to have like the most up to date version of your project in Replit in your GitHub repo, you have to like go in and manually sync the way you did it.
Correct. So if we go back to this one here, there is no branch. There's nothing connected. So if I go into the GitHub settings, I can create a remote branch. So I could customize what I want this to be. Or I could even add a Replit project, or I'm sorry, a GitHub project that's already in here and sync it with that. And then we can also see that we have the different connections here. So we have GitLab, Bitbucket, GitHub. There's other, like Git repositories that you can pick to connect. And again, it's just one click to sign in. You'll log in through the OAuth provider, and then you can sync or push or pull from those. And then you can pick who the author is on those. Again, I don't exactly know why or how they pick 2 different commit authors here. This one is my Replit profile, and then this one is my GitHub actual user profile. And so that's back here in the settings of this Git branch. So of this Git panel in the top right. So if you ever wanted to look at those, if you wanted to see like, okay, what branch I'm in. So everything kind of happens in this Git pane here inside of your tools panel.
Good question from Brad here. How do I kill work that has been started in a task? I do this all the time. Pretty straightforward. Just don't push it to main and or just like archive the task if you don't like it. I do this all the time where I go into my different tasks and I drop in a whole bunch of different ideas, and like maybe 50% of them like I'll just discard after the plan or after some initial building, and then yeah, I just will exit out on the option to not push the main, and then just archive the task, and then I just move on.
Yeah, right. So if it's not started yet, you could just go ahead and cancel it from here. So if you're not sure where I'm at right now, here's the main branch, right? So I'm in my, let's just show typical preview view here. Um, and so if I come in here underneath my main agent on the left sidebar, I have a board that I can open up and it will show me these suggested tasks. Even if I had active or tasks that are ready, I have this little action menu here where I can either cancel them or
Mm,
archive them. And so let's say I don't want this to happen. I'm just going to go ahead and cancel that. And then what you'll see here is you have the ability to see your archived and then canceled tasks on this last column of your side of your board here. And
mhm.
so even if it's ready, even if it's green, like for instance over here on the community side, where did that go? Hang on a second. Where are you? Did I lose that? Hang on, let me just
Mhm.
pull
And
that
then,
back up.
one other thing to note is even if you commit it to main, when you do that, it's gonna trigger a, git commit, and you can always roll back as well. So, like, say you accidentally committed to main, like, "Oh, I actually don't want that." It's pretty straightforward just to roll that back and restart the task again.
Yeah, and let me just show, like for instance, this. Okay, this is a task that I have in flight here. It says it's ready, right? So it's green here. I can apply this, which will merge it into the main project, or I can still come over here and cancel it. So I can say this task is done, right? So basically, this task, if I look, it's telling me to cap the home stream live streams. So let's wait for this preview to load. Let me close this window here. Let me just refresh the preview. And so this task is ready. It's telling me, and what we did was basically this was showing me 7 because I just added like upcoming live stream to the homepage instead of just the past live streams. And so this is telling me it's done. I can either apply the changes, I can preview them here, or I can just cancel that and dismiss it, right?
Mhm,
Or if I want, I can review the changes and I can look at my diff, right? And so
mhm,
here's what was committed inside of this change, and I can go back through and kind of see what was changed. This is again, this is not something you need to do, but it helps understand like what's going on. And then inside of here, you'll see comments that the agent wrote, right? So backstop cap, never render more than 6 cards. So it's leaving itself notes. This is documentation inside the code. These are
mhm,
comments inside the code that the agent is kind of leaving for itself. This is stuff that developers do all the time to explain, like, here's what's happening with this code. And so if you see these, green or two forward slashes, those are comments in the code that just allow context. They allow the agent or other developers who are coming behind you to understand what was there. And so as it's making changes, it's also leaving itself notes so that it knows why that was there. And it's kind of helpful sometimes to just, go in and see that. We talk again. I don't look at these all the time. I don't look at the diffs very often, but every once in a while I do. And again, that's how I would dismiss that work. So I could just come up here, I won't, and click cancel.
mhm.
But then I could also rename this here again because I might want the checkpoint in my Git panel to look
Mm.
a little different.
And the other thing that you can do, which I do quite a bit, is you can just X out of that prompt to push the main and continue working on that same task. Because agent will like it'll complete its work and like, okay, is it ready? You ready to push it to main? No, I want you to change this, do this other thing, and then it'll ask you again if you're ready to push the main.
Yeah, and let me go and see if I can find something inside of here that's going to ask me to, because we just did this manual action over here when we synced these changes. We essentially pulled and pushed. And what I want to show is that this little update from main down here, when you're
Mm,
in a parallel task, which is a branch, we talked about what a branch is, and something changes in the main project, you're going to see this option down here. What this is replicating is exactly what we just did here. It's going to pull the most recent changes, and merge what's the most current version of the main branch into this current task. So let's say you have a bunch of other tasks, parallel tasks running in the background that have been merged into main, and you're working on something new. You may want to update from main to make sure that the task has all of those other changes as it rolls through. And you may not, right? There may be a reason why you don't want to do that, and you want to just wait until the end, and it will deal with the merging at the time. So don't so don't get lost too much thinking about this. The system will handle it for you, but you can update again as you pull in changes from the back end. Okay, so let me just go back to the slides just to make sure we're where we want to be. Rolling back checkpoints we have not done, and I wanted to show you how to do this. So let's go back to rolling something back here. Let's go back to our Git integration. And what I want to show you here, let's go to the preview. I want to show you some things that I've done here that allow me to, and I'm going to show you just changes. So I have it so I can click to change. Let me zoom out so you can see what's happening. So I have this little lower third tool that I'm building, and basically I've added the ability to kind of click and make some changes here. We can go between classic and news view, single row and double row. And these are changes that I've made recently to the file. So let's go to my Git control board here. And let's go back before those changes were made. So let's go 3 months ago. Let's go 20 days ago. All right. So, that was just a publish. So there were no changes. Let me go find something that has some changes. 3 months ago. Add the ability to sort Notion databases by date properly. So on this date, in this commit, let's say I want to go 3 months back in time, right? And I can see here that what these things did was modify the admin dashboard, the Replit MD file, the routes file, and the schema. I'm just going to click this restore all button. All right. And don't be scared. This isn't going to do anything super dangerous, but I'm just going to click restore all. And then I'm going to go back to my commit pane. And remember, I told you before, you cannot make a commit until something has changed. And so what I just did by going to that restore point and clicking restore is that I took all of the code changes that have been made since that point and I threw them out. And so that's what this is telling me right here. This is telling me that all of these files deleted because this file didn't exist. It was created after that checkpoint that I just restored. And then M modified says that this file changed from that time 3 months ago. And so I can now come over to my preview. And if I refresh this preview, it'll do it for me. What we're going to see is that I no longer have the ability to click here, which I was sending those before. I don't have my toggle between my different views here, right? So remember I had the little toggle. So I can see now inside of my project the state of the project at this moment in time that I just changed back to, again, without doing anything to the project here, right? If I just discard all here, I'm going to discard all those changes, right? And so now I'm back to current time. If I restore the project here, and this should refresh, what I will see now is now I have my controls back, right? And I have my selectors. And so going back and forth, let's say you just want to remember oh, where was I when I was doing X, Y, Z? Again, you can go into your Git pane. You can look at where you want to go. Let's go look at what this thing looked like 4 months ago, let's say, before we even started playing here. And let's click restore all. Again, that restore all button doesn't actually push anything because we have to manually make that change. We have to push that commit. And so now I'll go restore all to that point 4 months ago. I'm going to refresh the screen here, and I don't know exactly what changed, but there's probably some kind of significant change here. What you'll see is the data is the same because I haven't changed the database. I haven't rolled the database back. All I'm doing is changing the code inside of here. Oh, okay, so here's what we'll notice. See where these controls are for open the YouTube source. So now we have shows and YouTube, and I had this sidebar over here was kind of disconnected a little bit versus again, if I come back to my tools and I'm going to go back to my commit and I'm going to discard all of these changes that I just restored. This is everything that has kind of happened since 4 months ago. Let's discard those. Come back to my preview and refresh. We'll see that now I'll have the nice unified navigation, the changes that we made at the top. I still have the same sidebar, but you can see that I kind of cleaned up the UI since that point. There are other changes that have been made, and it looks like my OBS preview is not working, so I'll refresh that. So sometimes as you're going back and forth, you'll see that you just need to refresh because obviously these code files have been changed. So anyway, that is restoring a checkpoint. If I wanted to, for instance, lock in that change. So like, let's say I wanted to go back in time and say to 9 hours ago, I'm going to restore all of these. And I like where that preview is, right? I go back to my preview and I'm like, oh, this is exactly what I want. Then I would come back to my Git panel. I would create a summary if I wanted to. I could add a description, and then I would manually make a change. And I could say rolling back to, when XYZ worked, or rolling back to a different menu navigation, or whatever it is I want to do. So I don't actually want to do that. I'm going to discard these changes, but I could come in here, and this is a commit to roll back to another working version of the site. So I might do that, and I might click stage and commit to make a just a static change or a commit there. But again, I don't want to do any of that. I'm going to discard these changes. Okay, have I lost everyone? I saw somebody just ask what the dancing Elmo was. So if I go back, what this is a tool that allows me to kind of connect to Notion and turn Notion docs into, we're playing with some stream assets. So a little, for folks who are kind of interested in what's coming up, we're playing with some like custom lower thirds. And the Elmo, each of these comes with graphics. So there's two views. There's like this ESPN sidebar, like we can scroll through segments, and that has images. So as I scroll through, you'll see kind of the images change up top here. There you go. So as I click through this, you'll see the image change. And so there's a section for videos and images on this. And then we have just like a regular lower third that doesn't have those images. But as I explore, it still shows me the media that's associated with each segment. So anyway, just answering the question, there was this, what's the dancing Elmo?
We're going full broadcast mode.
Oh yeah, you guys, this is super cool.
Stay tuned.
I can't wait to show you this. Hello stream. So yeah, this is cool. And then I have the ability to just kind of have lower thirds queued up, and we can push, we can clear. Yeah, this is cool stuff.
I saw a really good question earlier from Webcom around like DB rollbacks and Git. So maybe can you talk a little bit about the rollbacks and version control when it comes to databases?
Yeah. Okay. So, yes, when you restore a checkpoint, so let's find a checkpoint here. Checkpoint made 9 hours ago. I can click to see the changes again. So it's going to show me that commit, change tab that we've been looking at. But I can also click this rollback button, right? So just like I can come inside of here and click restore all, I'm basically rolling back to that moment in time. And it's a little easier to find the checkpoints here in the Git pane than it is having to scroll up. So like, let's say I just wanted to find some old checkpoint. I'm just going to open a bunch of these. Like I might have to scroll up. So checkpoint made 3 months ago, right? So I might have to scroll really high to find these checkpoints in the agent chat. Whereas I could just, open them up in the commit graph or in the Git pane by looking through them here. What the agent checkpoints in the sidebar give me that other place that this Git pane doesn't is the ability to open this rollback to checkpoint screen and then click to restore the database to that checkpoint as well. So let's say in one of my changes, I changed the schema and I modified something in my database and I want to restore back to the previous version of that. I can do that, and when I click roll back to this checkpoint, it's also going to bring the database along with me. This is useful, again, if you, made changes to the database and you want to remove that column, or you made some breaking change that, you want to undo, or let's say you deleted some data somehow that you want to restore. You could do that all from here. You could also go to the database pane itself, click on the database you want to restore or roll back to, come to the settings, and you see this point in time recovery. You could just come back here and pick where do you want to restore from, right? So you can pick your time. You can see where, I can come in here and have a date picker and just say, let's go back to July 8th and let's restore from that point. And again, that will roll the database back. If you do it manually like this, it does not change the code. This is just going to do the database side of things. So if you want to do the code and the database at once, you kind of want to find this checkpoint, with the rollback functionality where you can just click, or you can, again, go when you're in your Git pane, you can find the moment in time, right? So you could find when this was committed. So 10 hours ago, July 14th, there's my, timestamp. And if I wanted to go into the database and, again, restore to that point, I could go into my settings, point in time recovery, restore database, and then I would just pick and set that exact same time that I just saw there to go back in time with the database. So if you want to scroll up, you can find it in the sidebar to bring the database with you, or you can go to the database tab, go to your checkpoint, and roll both back at the same time, depending on, where you are in the agent chat or where or how you want to do that backup.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So hopefully that covers everything about rolling back checkpoints, unless there's questions from folks in the chat here. My eyes are glazing. I know we're super nerd mode here.
When you roll back, do any of the UI designs update as well? They also roll back. Everything will roll back to that point in time, right? So like your UI, your backend, pretty much anything you're working on at that point.
Correct. And let's look at an example of that. Like, I'm going to open a desktop app that I built, this chat app, and we can see this nice little homepage design thing, whatever. So let's go to the Git pane, and let's just go way back. Update project branding, introduce new design variations. Let's see what that is. And I'm just going to restore that, and let's go to the preview, and let's refresh, and let's just see what the UI does. Because what you're doing, there you go. So now this was before I did any design work on that homepage, right? So the app will still work. I can still create a room, right? Single use encrypted chat. You can see this was kind of like the early version of what this thing looked like. I could join a room, so the functionality was there, but it wasn't really what I wanted it to be. And so again, between now and then, I made all these changes, and that is changes to the UI, changes to how the backend works, changes to the animation. So that's what all this stuff is. So you can see I have invite files, glitch text effect, badge buttons. So these are kind of UI components. You can see I changed the open graph image. Index.html is kind of like the core file that gets served, the core HTML file that serves up the main app. And then we see some images here. So there were some images, maybe these were pasted images that I pasted into the chat or whatever. So again, if you roll back, you're going to roll everything back, UI updates, everything, except for obviously in this moment, I would not be taking the database with me, which we just explained. So I'm going to discard these. Again, we'll discard all those changes. If I come back to the preview now and we restore that, we refresh that page, we'll see now we're back to our nice UI. And again, we have the ability to create the identity, join the room. Everything's here. We just have the nice UI that we created with those changes. Okay, so we've shown GitHub, push-pull sync, import public and private repositories is something you can do. I'm not sure we're going to cover that today. But let's say you wanted to bring in an existing project from GitHub, you could start a new project with that. So if if I go to Replit, let's just do it. Replit.com. Let's start from here. Upload a file. Oh, where? It's.
I just usually grab the Git project link and just drop it in there.
Just drop it right into the
Yeah,
agent.
just drop
That's how
it in
it's
there.
pulled.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Like, there's
Right.
been a
Right.
couple times when I've seen like really cool stuff on X, and they're like, "Oh, here's my Git repo project." I'm like, I just grab it, I put it into Replit, and I like reproduce this in Replit, and let me build with it.
Yeah, and what you're looking for is this link here. So let's say I wanted to pull something into a Replit project. This code link here is what I'm looking for. Copy this URL to the dashboard. I'm just going to grab that link, and that's the link you would drop in to basically pull this code in. You drop that in anywhere into the agent, and it will yank that in, and you can just get started with the project. Okay. Inviting collaborators. This is pretty basic. So if I'm in my Replit project here and I come into the top, and this is what you were talking about before, Manny, because then everyone gets their changes tracked. When I invite whoever I might want to invite, I can invite them with permissions. I drop their name or email inside of here, and I pick the role I want to give them, and they will then be able to come into this project, see kind of what's happening in the different chat. They'll be able to start adding tasks to the task board, and I will see, who's accepted the task, who created the task, right? So this is planned by the agent, this was accepted by Raymmar. So then you can see, Manny, this is what you were talking about before, who's making changes, who's pushing things to the project. I know they're considering things like limiting who can actually merge tasks and do different things, because there's a big part of kind of version control that wants to make sure that you're not just letting anybody push changes to your code, right? Especially once you get into more complicated projects, it's very difficult to just invite some random person without them having the context of the project. Just like an agent needs context of the project, other people who are going to work on your project need context of like what's going on. There may be unfinished features. There may be things that you set up to kind of, like take into the next phase of what you're building. And so you want to be able to kind of manage who can contribute, who can make changes, who can view changes, etc.
hmm And then, if you wanted to go the more formal route in terms of importing stuff, if you go back to your screen and you go back to Replit, just the landing page,
Mm-hmm.
start a new project. For everybody on the left-hand side, you're going to see something called import your code or design. And there it gives you all of the options. So you can click on GitHub here, and if your GitHub the profile is linked up, it'll give you all the projects in your GitHub to pull in. You can pull in a Figma file. You can bring in another project from these other platforms. So this is another way to get started as well.
Yeah, this is what I was looking for before, and I forgot that it's in this import code or design. You can import from a bunch of different sources. Again, in GitHub, if you want to pull a project as a zip, right? So I could download as a zip. I could bring it in here and upload as a zip. I could click to migrate or import from any one of these, and then GitHub's the easiest one. And then inside of here, I would just either pick which of my projects I want to connect to, which this is just pulling from all of my different GitHub projects, or I could type a specific link. Remember, I showed you that's the link you're going to grab is this code link. And if I drop that in, it's going to pull in that specific repo into the project itself. So yeah, very, very nice call out, Manny. Okay, working in parallel. We talked about the task boards, and I'm not going to do a deep dive about working in parallel, but we talked about, again, there's a stream recently about working with parallel agents, but I did share on this task board. I just wanted to show that you can have a bunch of things running at once, and each one of these is essentially a branch of your project that as they go through become commits, right? So as I come in here, you can see kind of what was changed, and this has a checkpoint that's associated with it, right? So that's another good reason for using these individual tasks is that as I come through, as I see this task, at the end, it will show me, and again, it gives me that rollback feature where I can roll back my database, and I can do this with any task on the board, right? So as I come into my board, I can literally come into any one of these tasks. As I come in, it shows me that task plan, right? It shows me kind of what happened here. And on this one, it doesn't look like it shows me a checkpoint to roll back to. Probably because this was associated with another subtask or something. So I would have to go hunt this one down in the Git pane if I wanted to restore back to this, but we showed you how to do that.
Do you want to share that Kanban board? Yeah, people were asking, how do you get to this view?
Yeah, okay, so there's 2 ways to get to this view. When I'm in my main thread here, right, so we can see that the sidebar, there's an open and closed view of the sidebar from the bottom left, where I can open and close that. And as you see, when I open it, you'll see that there's a board here underneath my main thread. So what I have here is my main agent thread at the top. I then have this Kanban board where I can see all of the different tasks that are in flight or proposed. And then underneath that, I have the ability to create a new task, which again creates that branch and forks the project for me so that I can start experimenting. Or I have these different tasks that I can kind of view that are on the board in different states. And the color kind of indicates what's happening, right? So green means it's ready. Yellow means it's kind of waiting for something. It's active. It's, waiting for the next response. And then blue means it's ready to go or that it's in progress, right? And so I'm going to go ahead on this one, and I'm just going to go ahead and merge that back to the main version. I like those changes. And so this is basically pushing the branch. We talked about when you create a new task, it forks your project. It creates a branch inside of Git. And now we've just pushed that back into the main agent chat. So if I come to main here, we're going to see anytime you see this updating environment, that's what it's doing. It's basically saying, hey, we're going to sync those changes that you just made back into the main project. And then again, you see your checkpoint. And yeah, you can see what changed. We can look at the diff. Again, and the better you get at kind of, you don't have to understand any of this. Honestly, I used to look a lot more at these diffs. I used to look a lot more at like what the agent was doing. I less and less look at this stuff. I do, when I'm restoring, when I'm looking at, so here's the ability to restore from this commit. So again, when I'm restoring, that's when I'll look deeply. If I'm looking at changes, if I'm looking at something specific, I might nerd out and see like, okay, what exactly was changed in this file or something like that. But I'm very often not looking at anything like that.
Yeah, if anything, I'll see agents' responses as it's building what it's thinking, like the chat. There's like a little Dropbox that tells you the actions that agent is taking. So I like reading those. But yeah, the diffs.
Yeah.
Not that interested me.
Yeah, I almost never look at the diffs anymore. I did used to more deeply. Again, the agent's getting so good. So I think what you're talking about, Manny, is like opening up these. Let me see if I find these.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, it's like it's thinking to itself.
Yeah, so I'll open these up and I'll kind of like look inside of here and I'll read the chain of thought.
The traces, as the cool people call them.
That's
right.
right.
Agent traces.
Okay, so let's make sure. So working in parallel. So again, like these tasks can all be running. We covered how to get to the board here. Manny could be in this project. Raymmar could be in this project. We could all be kind of pumping prompts at this thing. Again, you want to be careful how you do that because you can create all sorts of chaos for yourself if you just let randomly people come in and they don't understand like what's happening behind the scenes. Sometimes that can be, like anyway.
And I gotta say, this has become my default way of working, even when I'm working on a project by myself. It's just like any idea that I have, I'm just going in and dropping in a new task. I like it. Like I can see that exact change and see it in the preview in the task, and then I can work on multiple different types of tasks. It's like they're more like threads that I can just go into and like continue the conversation on that. And then then when I'm done with something, I push it to main. So I'm like always now defaulting to the task for like any new thing that I'm building.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think everything new should happen in a task, mostly because then you get this nice compartmentalized, it goes in the board, right? So you're able to kind of see them in chunks. It helps kind of break it helps you think about how to break up, like very well scoped feature updates. You start in plan mode every time, and so yeah, I'm in the main thread. I either start with plan mode here, or when I go into new task, I'm in default in plan mode, and that's where I will start almost everything. If you remember watching, even just a few months ago, I had these little commands where I was like typing, let's talk about this. Don't write any
Right.
code. Like I was not going into plan mode. I was like always in build mode because it had better context. Now, because of how the models work, and because they, are just better at organizing and running the context all at once, I just come in here, plan everything, and then you'll often see 5, 6, 8 parallel tasks running in the background. So remember, with core, you can have 5 parallel tasks at once. With pro, you can have, I think, up to 10.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, you'll sometimes see me going back and forth between just a ton of different little tasks, and then I just kind of bounce between them. So like here, I'm literally in progress of linking multiple Replit accounts to one, so that we can aggregate kind of what's happening in these profiles. Maybe you have 2 or 3 different accounts that you want to pull information from and blend it into one single profile. And so I'm kind of working on a task. I'm not ready to merge that just yet, but it's in progress.
While you're here, can I show you something I found that I really like? If you go back to that task,
Which one?
just go back to any of the task,
Hmm.
and then you click on the upper, like if you click on the little drop down at the top on the name, yeah, there's an option to automatically apply changes.
Hmm.
And I think there's even an option, like, when you go into plan mode, to automatically accept the plan and start building. So this
Correct.
is one thing that does trip me up, is that like, I oftentimes forget to initiate build mode after the plan has been complete, and then I will sometimes forget to push it back to main. And there are certain small tasks that I know that I 100% trust agent on. I know it's going to do a great job with, like, small details things. And so, like, having these options, yeah, automatically approve plan, yeah, automatically approve plan, automatically push the main. Those are handy to know about.
Yeah, they can be good and bad all at once. So you just need to know what you're doing here. So
Yeah.
if you create a new task, right? So if I'm in my main and I go to create a new task, what Manny's saying is that at the top, I can just say automatically approve the plan. So if I have spent some time with my prompt, I'm very specific about what I want, and I know the task is going to just do what it's going to do. I can drop that in here. I can have that toggle select, and I don't have to click start building at this point. It's just going to go, right? When the task plan is ready, it's going to fire it into build mode, and it's just going to start building. I don't need to manually approve that. Same thing Manny is saying here is that when the task is in flight, if I click in that same place, I can say automatically apply changes. And what this will do is when the task is ready, it will auto merge back into the main project. Again, this can be very useful if you're very clear on what you're doing and you're firing through different things. You have structured prompts. I know a lot of people like prepare their prompts outside of Replit and then bring them into Replit. So if you have some of those things kind of just going and you want to rapid fire, okay, have things all build and have them all merge, you could totally have those set. Where you might get into problems is if you have, let's say, something a little more complicated, or you're just
Mhm.
experimenting a little bit and you don't want to merge it back until you've actually reviewed that it works, or until you've tested the changes, or maybe even after the agent comes back and says, hey, this is ready, you need to make some modifications, say, it's not quite ready, we still need to do X, Y, or Z, and then you can kind of vibe code inside the task before you then manually update or push those changes into the main branch.
Mhm. I think I have an intuition now. Like, there's certain tasks, like, I know, like, oh, agent's gonna one shot this, no problem. And then to your point, right, more like, I'm oftentimes experimenting with new things, so that's, of course, I'm not gonna, like, automatically push to main on that one. There were a couple questions that came in through the chat that I thought were good. Jake Clampton asked earlier, is it dangerous to use suggested tasks if they've been around for a while, is that going to have any
Mm.
problems with the code base? And my general thinking is no, because when you opt for a suggested task, if it still applies, it's not like agent is taking something that it built earlier for you and applying it to your project. It's starting from scratch and it's generating a plan from scratch. It's taking the point in time version of your existing code base, it's putting it into a task, and it's working on the latest version that you have, and it's building off of that. So even if it was suggested, like 3 days ago, if you think it's still relevant, it's going to start fresh from that same, like from your most recent code base. So I don't think there's a problem there. Would you add anything to that, Remmer?
No, I agree 100%. The task that's proposed is not doing or has not done anything to the code just yet. It's basically just a plan, right? So essentially, it's a prompt that it's created to guide you into the next step. Um, and so, yeah, you can fire that off whenever you want. The only problem is that other things might have changed, so you might want to update the context of the plan, right? And right now, you can't edit proposed tasks. Hopefully, that's coming soon because I think the proposed tasks are really good. But it would be cool if I could open it up and like make some modifications or suggestions to that proposed task. Because I do that sometimes. I'll keep those proposed tasks like in flight or kind of sitting on the sidelines, thinking that maybe I'll get to them later. Sometimes I dismiss them. There are times where I just fire off a bunch of those proposed tasks and let them run. But yeah, there is no difference when you do them. And just like any task, right? Like until you hit start building, no changes are happening in your code when it's just a task plan or when you're just planning, which is really the value of planning these tasks out before you get started. And even after that, when you click start building, it's going to then take the plan, look at the files it selected and kind of the context it gave itself, and then it's going to go off to work and do that for you. So,
Mhm.
yeah, yep, I think you're 100% right, Manny.
Another question from Bart here. If you finish a task and don't push it to main for a while, is there anything that should be done to ensure that it applies to main properly? I don't think so, Rymar. I mean, that's the nice thing about what agent is doing. It's handling the merge conflict. So oftentimes, like I will have like 5 tasks that are cooking, and then I push a couple of tasks to main, and then my fourth task that I'm pushing, I'm just assuming that agent is going to handle that merge conflict. So unless it's been sitting there for like maybe weeks, I don't think it's going to be a problem. And even if there is a problem, again, the cool thing is that agent is managing the merge here. So it's going to main and saying like, oh, this is what we built in this task. Something doesn't quite fit here with the main. Let me handle that and work on that. And then if I have questions, I'll come back to the user. But I let agent handle all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And a merge conflict arises when two different changes have been made to the exact same code and there's not clarity on which should take priority, right? So for instance, uh, let's say Rymar comes in here and changes the button text from become an ambassador to claim your community profile. But then Manny comes in and in the same or in a different task, he changes the button entirely to join our partnerships live stream or whatever, right? He changed the main call to action and we both try to push those into main, right? The system's going to be like, hey, Rymar said, do this, and Manny said, do that. What should I actually do, right? And so the system is then going to look at who did it first, what was the initial state, what was the prompt, what's the intent. And so the agent has all this context around what it should be doing, what was the last commit or what was the last change. And then it's going to try to like figure out, and that's a very simplified version, but there could be very complex. You might have changed core functionality, not just text, that it then has to sort out for you. And this is where some of the complication can come. And again, where the agent is so good at just understanding what was the intent behind this change, who was the last person to make that update, and then let's rebase the app. You'll see the agent kind of talking about rebasing the app, which is basically just, you know, spinning those wheels in the back end to make sure that those things merge in the right way. And like Manny's saying, if it has questions, it will just come back and ask you like, hey, what's supposed to happen here? And then again, just like you interact with the agent, you can give it clarity or direction if needed.
I think people don't appreciate how difficult this is. This
Hmm.
is something that's been plaguing developers for a long time. And previously, what you'd have to do is you'd have somebody that owns the project and they would manage those merges, there's those conflicts directly. And you have to go back and forth with individual contributors. And the fact that Replit agent is handling for you, like I don't think anybody else does this. Like this is so it's a very difficult problem. And we're seeing here like agent just does a great job with this. Yeah, I think it's one of those things that agent does so well that you just don't appreciate like how hard that is.
Almost no other platform, because of the technical complexity of forking and managing these branches, lets you do anything like this, right? And so a lot of times you're just working in the main branch with most of these tools. You have commits, but you just have that, like you don't have the ability to have a bunch of different forks or to have merge conflicts. Where you can get into problem with merge conflicts is if, like, let's say you have two people that are working in Claude Code and they're storing the code in a Git repository because they have it sent out to Vercel, and they're both pushing changes from two sides. You could run into real merge conflicts because I might be making changes to the web app and the back end and the functionality, and you might do something that touches one of those things, and we both push changes and neither of us kind of coordinated with each other. And then next thing you know, the app won't merge, the app won't load, the thing won't publish because you have now this merge conflict, and you have to manually unravel that in all of these other platforms, or again, be some kind of experienced developer who can go into the code and see what changed, why is this conflict here, and how do we resolve it, versus again, the agent being able to see all these parallel tasks, trying to manage and understand and deal with those merge conflicts without any input from you.
Hmm.
Um, Let me show you one more thing here before we go full off script riff mode, because there's one more kind of interesting thing. And this is the thing that I mentioned before that I don't think a lot of people have seen in Replit. This was a cool feature that I remember seeing early on, and even had a little bit of a chat about how it works with Michele, because to me, this is super cool. If I go into a file, so what I'm looking at right now is I am in a version of this Discord file. So if I go to my file tree and I type Discord, right, this discord.tsx file is what I'm looking at. And then let's just get out of this view so you can just see I am in the discord.tsx file. So I've just opened up a file in my, and again, I know most of the time we're not looking at the code, but I just want to show you this. If I come down here to history in the bottom right, this is going to now allow me to literally just scrub through changes in this file,
Wow.
which is super cool,
Hmm.
right? These are your diffs in real time. So what you're watching right here is literally me typing and updating this file, right? So a lot of times I will just, go in and make text updates in the file, and it stores all those in real time. And at the risk of like totally introducing something that none of you need to know about, there's this thing called a CRDT. It's a conflict free something data type, or a you imagine you bring up a concept and you don't remember the acronym.
Chat will get to it, guaranteed.
Conflict free something data type. Basically, all this does is it allows this. It's how Git diffs work. You don't store the entire file all at once, right? So every time this thing takes a snapshot, every time this thing takes a commit, every time this thing like saves your work, it's not actually like saving every single file, everything. All it's saving is the difference of the file between one and the other. And the CRDT is what works behind the scenes to basically make sure who made changes when, right? It's what allows like a Google Doc for people to update in real time. Conflict-free replicated data type. Yes, I'm sorry. Why I don't know why I couldn't remember the replicated.
Chat for the win.
Yes. So basically, what a CRDT is basically saying, hey, look, there's this doc, right? Imagine a Google Doc, right, where we can collaborate. There's 4, 5, 6 people collaborating in a Google Doc. It's kind of the easiest way to understand this. Is essentially what's happening in the code when you have forks or branches, like multiple people are working in a doc, right? And so in the Google Doc, there's again, Manny changes the punctuation, Raymmar changes a couple words, so and so is just in there deleting a paragraph, adding a paragraph. To keep that document synced in real time live is a very challenging technical problem, because again, what if Raymmar changes on mobile and he's offline, and then Manny changes at work, and then at some point those things come together and they have to figure out, like, how does this resolve itself? Okay, well, that's kind of what's happening in Git with these checkpoints and with these rollbacks and with, like, what's going on inside of these files. And so the ability to just kind of come back and restore in time and see all that is just really showing off the technical infrastructure that's back here that allows, these snapshots, this stuff to work seamlessly. And you can even compare the changes as you roll back in time, right? So I can see,
That's cool.
like, and this is something, again, that almost nobody sees or looks at inside of their files, but you can go back into any file, literally any file. I can open the file. I can click on the history of that file in the lower left corner. Okay, here, this one hasn't changed too much.
Mhm.
So you have to find something that has, like, changes to it. Let's see, maybe the home file does.
And where I think this is helpful, Ramar, is if I want to learn how to make quick changes on like my front end copy really fast without prompting agent, it's going to save me tokens. It's going to be faster. I could just see where agent is making the changes and kind of just jot that down for future reference.
Well, yes. Let me show you exactly how. Okay, that's such a good use case, and I agree, because what you were watching and the one that I was highlighting there was me typing in the app. So let me show you a really quick way to do that, because I do this all the time. I often don't want to deal with the agent, when it comes to text updates or even little styling changes. Sometimes I will do myself, and let me show you how I might make that happen, right? So I'm going to come over here to the lower left, and I'm going to pick my little select element, right? I have an element selector in my agent chat pane. As you see, when I click that, it kind of comes down into this other view. And as I scroll over, I can click elements on the page. And when I click on an element, I could change the text here if I want to, right? And save that. But I might want to, like, just look at the whole page in context, and I might want to, like, make more nuanced edits. So again, once I have that element selected here, if I come over to my pane, my style tab, and I command or control click on that element at the top, it's going to take me to that place in the code here, right? And so now I'm able to see in the code where and what the text is saying. So in that instance, let me look, because it doesn't look like it took me right to the text. So if I can't find it in that instance, what I'll do is let me close this. So it's taking me to the file. I'm going to grab just a little bit of this text. Here's another way you can do this. And you can search for that. And if I click here, it's going to show me. Okay, so it's doing a search. There it is. So it's going to show me the different places where this text exists, right? And so I think what happened is that text is in a dynamic place, and so it's not letting me see it in the file here. But if I command F, I can also search for that text inside of here, and it's showing me that there's no version. So what that is that text is pulling in from somewhere else, which means I need to find it here. Mockup home. Let me see if I can. And I don't know why it doesn't let me click into this file anymore. There we go. So here we go, right? If I wanted to, I could just change the text here. Here's my call to action. Here's where that goes to. Here's where we join Discord. And now I remember why that's not showing, because this is dynamic text, because we have this edit mode. So when I'm logged in as an admin, I have the ability to just come in here and change this text. And so it's dynamic text. This isn't pulling in from the actual code file. So but let me find something else. I just want to show you, like, I want to find, like, okay, this connect build ship is for sure going to be a paragraph somewhere. So again, I'm going to command click on that element. And here's the text, connect build ship. If I wanted to change that with friends, I can click command S. I can save that file. So now I've saved that. If I go to my preview, now the change is there. And there's no, yeah, save one edit. We're going to cancel that. Okay, it's going to create a checkpoint for me. I don't like that. It didn't used to do that, but let's see what it does. Let's see if the agent actually charges me for that. You don't have to. I could have canceled that. The change is there. The change is in the file. Yep, the change is already in place. I'm going to undo that. So I'm going to come back here and undo that. And this is, okay, command save, come back to preview, and now that's gone again.
People like it when you get into the code, dude. They like getting to see underneath the hood and all the tactics.
Well, and it's one of those things, again, the better you get, even at just navigating and understanding like what this thing is. So like, let's say I want to just understand, how does this element work, right? So here's this recent live streams element. What if I want to just go see, where is that?
This is new to me. I didn't know this. This is really cool.
So you just
Try to understand
click,
it more. Yeah.
and here it is. Here's the, okay, set YouTube channel. So it's, button settings, and here's like the class name grid, height, width 9. So it's like, these are tailwind properties. It's telling the items to be centered with rounded full borders, and it's giving it colors. So again, you can kind of see refresh live. So it's giving me pieces of the UI, add a video here. So if I come in and like, let's leave this mode and go to edit here. I have the ability to like add videos and do some of these settings. So I can pick, I can add a video. So that's where these things are in the UI. Like if I go into that section, button add video, here's where it's pulling from. So here's the code. So if I wanted to change the YouTube place that this is pulling from, I could change this URL here without having to do anything with, again, with the agent. And let's say I change this. This is the button, Replit, not live. And we're going to save that. And if I come out to the preview, now the button says Replit, not live. And if I go to my Git pane, so if I go to my tools and I go to my Git, we're going to see in just a second here, it's checking to see if anything has been changed. It should recognize that change file. There it goes. So we've changed these two things here. And so now I could make a manual commit, right? So like we saw the agent came in and made that checkpoint because I told it to save it through the front end. But you could just save it and tell it to come in and check it here. So we're going to discard all those changes because we don't actually want any of those changes to stick. And actually, I need to come back and check because it might have brought back my with friends here. So I don't need with friends. I actually do want that to save. So I'm going to command save that. We're going to go back to our Git, and we're going to see that it's going to recognize that that header has been changed again. Come on, baby. There we go. And we're going to say remove with friends from live demo. And I'm going to stage and commit that change. Okay, so remove friends with live demo. So there it goes. So you can see the one that the agent made. It made a checkpoint here, and here's the one that I just made, removing it. And if we go to preview, and we'll see that that is no longer there, and all the code is as it should be. So yeah, again, I don't know if we're deep into the weeds here on some of this stuff, but again, learning how to navigate, the more technical you are, exploring the project, the more ability you have to kind of know where things are, how they're happening, especially if you're just learning and you are actually trying to like improve your technical skill set. Jumping in, learning how to navigate the code, learning how to kind of get to different places, it's, super helpful. Again, it's not something you have to do, but it is here if you want to look at that. Things like changing, like little text is just, sometimes it's easy, especially if you're iterating. Like if you got a home section and you have like 3 columns and you're just kind of like playing with your icon text and you just want to like update that text, doing it in the code rather than having the agent do every one of those cycles could just be, first of all, way faster, and you're not going to get billed for those changes, right? So you can go in, you can make a bunch of those changes right in the back end and just save those, commit the change, and you're good to go. And you don't have to worry about, trying to have the agent iterate on every single one of those that you want. And then again, if we go into the history here, we can go back and you'll start seeing it just, there you go. It's just going to, each step of the way, it's just showing us what's the difference, what's the conflict-free replicated data type, and what's different between the old versions and the new versions. So I think, let's see, file history, every version, one click away. There it is. Yeah. Okay. That's what I got as far as like a deep dive. We can, go anywhere the questions might take us. I see some other stuff that's not related to this. Yeah, that's version control in Replit in a nutshell, top to bottom, front to back. Hopefully your your brain is not going to
be couple of questions on tasks and Git, and then there's some questions that came in earlier on community profile stuff we could tackle.
Yep.
I'm not this is an interesting question. Love to hear your thoughts. Can we push changes to different environments, preview, QA, dev, prod, for example? My sense is that you want to keep pushing to your preview, your like development environment, and then when you're ready, you publish within Replit, and that automatically publishes to the development environment.
Yeah, that's the you don't really need too many different environments.
Right.
You have development, which is basically your local version. I could see a staging version, which you can do anytime you like have database changes. You can create a like preview deployment of that as a staged change, and then you can just publish the app. But you can't. There's no like staging environment per se where you can set up like a totally separate staging environment to like test changes. It would be really cool if Replit allowed the ability to kind of have, let's say, versions of an app, so that you could, let's say, assign a bunch of tasks. For instance, I have some tasks that are in flight when I was working on the community profile, where it's like I kind of wanted to do a bunch of tasks that were related to that community profile, but not publish that until like I was ready to publish all the community profiles. And in that instance, it would have been nice to have a separate version that's not just the dev environment, that's kind of isolated. And then when I'm ready, publish that version and have that all synced. But that's a lot more complicated and involved workflow. That's like a really high-level professional development workflow. And so I think for most of what everybody needs is just the dev environment, which gives you your preview, which is essentially your staging. And then you have your production environment, which you publish to. So that, yes, that, I mean, there are instances where you might need more flexibility than that, but I have not run into them, and I use Replit a lot in a lot of, like technical use cases. So I think dev basically is my staging environment, and then production is the publish.
Right. Is there a way to remove an update without removing the changes after the update?
Yes, you have to surgically go in and remove that code from the files. That's the only way. That's where the diffs can come in handy. It can be very complicated. You can absolutely break everything in your project. This is why QA and testing are important before you just start merging everything back into main, because you want to avoid that specifically. That's a very advanced like workflow to kind of manually try to remove some kind of change while not removing everything that came after it. It's not something we can cover or document here, but yes, it is possible. It is just kind of manual and very technically involved, because you have to go in and manually look at the diffs, see which of the features are new, and then hopefully there's not a dependency on anything that came after on what you did. So if you made a change and it was fairly simple, and you can just restore back that file, that's where like the file history, let's say your changes were isolated to a single file or to 2 files, you can go and change those files back without touching anything else. But again, you have to do that manually. There's no way inside of Replit to say, hey, restore back to this point, but keep everything that came after. So it is something that is possible. Like I always say, the answer is always yes when it comes to technical stuff. The question is, can you do it? Can you understand how to like navigate it? And what is it going to take to get it done? So.
Ruth is finally joining us. She's at the dentist, and I'm sure Ruth knows this. But for
Oh,
everybody else, you can watch all of our replays on YouTube. Somebody was asking around how do the rollbacks handle databases. We talked about that quite a bit earlier in the show. Go and check out the replay. But Ruth, good to have you back. Hopefully everything went well there.
yeah, let's just cover real quick everything. So we talked about what version control is and how it works inside of Replit. We talked about what checkpoints are and how those translates to commits in your Git repositories. We explored the Git pane inside of Replit and how to roll back, including just the code as well as databases. We showed you a project connected and pushing and pulling from Git or syncing the project to Git, and how to also import from Git. As well as inviting collaborators and looking at the individual file history, time traveling through the files, which again, I think is just kind of visually fun. So if you missed any of that, or if you're just joining us and you want to like totally nerd out on version control inside of Replit, just go back and watch the replay.
Question from Spell Striker, or Spell Strike Tactical, excuse me.
Hey,
Hey,
Kelly in the house.
Kelly, is there a way did I just lose it? Is there a way you can merge two different projects without remixing them?
It would be very difficult to merge two projects. Yes, it would be very difficult to merge two projects unless they had the underlying exact same kind of core setup and infrastructure.
I would probably push him to Git and then grab the Git repos and drop them into one prompt and say, like, merge these two projects and give the agent the direction and have agent build a brand new project that's a merger of those two projects.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, there's a number of ways. I think that's probably
Oops. All right. Lost Raymmar. Should be coming back soon. But what I would say is, Kelly, I would take the project that you like, that you think is the furthest along, and then grab the Git repo from the other project and just bring it into agent. I would do a new task and say, hey, here are the things that I want from this other project that's related. Bring it into this new project and have this be the main project. That's actually the route that I would go now that I think about it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, is instead of trying to like merge two, find the one, start with the one that has the core functionality and then feed it the other side and say, hey, we want to bring these features in, or we want to bring this, that, the other in. That way you're not starting fully from scratch. Yeah, my Chrome browser crashed. For some reason, restream crashed. But anyway, we back. Did we just hang up on him? Yeah, that's right.
You're just getting into the good part.
There's some pin chats in here that let me see. Am I able to import Webflow projects? Not unless you have that project in Git. You could have it scrape a project. Like I have just had it feed it a URL, and you can, if anything's public on the site, you can grab it. So you could grab the HTML, you could grab the CSS, you could even grab the API. Like, so if there's a blog or other stuff, like you could map that content data structure. But you can't actually just import a Webflow project like this. Let's see. I made a Discord bot, but it's not 24/7. Can y'all make it 24/7 hosting? So this probably is the type of deployment that you have this set up on. You probably have this set up to an auto scale deployment, which turns the bot off. You need to set this up with a reserved VM. So if we, like go into the different publishing types, an auto scale server is basically just going to be deployed. And then if someone hits the URL, it's going to turn the server on and then scale it based on the traffic. And so if you have a heavily trafficked site and the auto scale that like never turns off, then your, Discord bot will probably run 24/7 on an auto scale deployment. If you don't have that kind of traffic, if you just want, a bot running in the background, you want to run that server on a reserved VM so that the machine is always on and your bot can just always be going. It doesn't turn off when the servers turn off. So that's likely due to the type of deployment you're on. And I would check on that first.
Stuart had a good comment earlier around like, is there a way to group different tasks? Because he wants to be able to bundle them and almost like form a theme of different tasks into one. Huh, I'm not sure. Would that be helpful?
The agent kind of does that already. So if you create a big multi-step task or like a big complicated task and it creates a task plan, it will often break them up and create dependencies on the main
Yes.
task. So
Mhm.
you'll see the agent kind of already do this for you. I don't see it all the time, but when I kind of feed it stuff that has like, okay, do this and then this and then this, but the second this and this can't happen until the first this happens, the agent will kind of create the task plan in a way where there is a top level task and then there are dependent tasks underneath them, and you will see that in the board, and you will also see that the tasks underneath will not start until the tasks above them are completed because they're waiting. They have a dependency on those previous tasks. Creates what I call mini projects. Yeah. You can also ask the agent to make however many tasks. Yeah, you can do that. Yep. Yeah, and I don't know exactly why or when it does this, but again, typically it's like a multi-stepped complex prompt that I've made that's asking to change multiple things at once that are related to each other. And
Mhm.
instead of doing that all in one task, it will usually break it down. You can't do this yourself, right? So I can't create a like high level task and then create subtasks in each of those. I can just create subtasks inside a main. And so, yeah, just know that that the agent will kind of try to do that if there's dependencies detected. Um, you could also create problems for yourself, merge conflicts like this, if you create a task and you say, hey, let's change this thing about how this works. And then in the next task, you just start a new task and you change something about that same thing and you have those both running at the same time. It can then get confused. So you want to think about like when I'm creating parallel tasks that I am not, man, he got the same treatment, that I'm not telling it to do the same thing um, in different places, right? So just think about that. That's something you probably want to get a little better at. If you have one task working on, let's say, the back end or the auth or your user dashboard or some kind of chart or something like that, don't also start a new task working on the exact same thing. When you start a parallel task or a new task, you should have that focused or pointed at something different, right? So that those conflicts don't come into play.
Mhm. A question from Brad earlier. Is there a way to allow a non-Replit user to view the deployment environment or I guess the dev URL?
Hmm.
Um, I guess I would just have them sign on and then just give them like they should set up they have to set up a Replit account to get into Replit and then just give them read-only access if you're
You
concerned
could
about
just
changes.
anytime
Oh,
here,
you
let's
should yeah, yeah, you should share the dev URL.
anytime the yeah, any oh, hang on, I gotta reshare my screen because when it restarted, so entire screen, this thing, this one. Okay, so anytime your development server is running, so basically anytime you're inside of Replit and this preview pane exists, if you click this little button in the top right, it will open up a new tab and you'll see it has some like weird number .spock.replit.dev. Anything .replit.dev is basically your development server, and as long as that environment is running, that link will work. So I could theoretically share this link in the chat right now, and you all would be able to open this development version of that site. And this will stay public and published. Two things. One, the site needs to be set to public. So if your workspace is set to private deployments, those development links will not be available. So some enterprise clients, some restricted clients may happen, but most of the time, if you see this link here, you can copy this URL, right from here, and share that with somebody, and they can access that development environment. Now, if this project stops running, if I close this tab, if I shut this preview down and I've shared that with somebody, that link will no longer work. That link only works when I am in Replit with this preview open and the development server is running. So in that instance, what Manny was saying is right. If, like if that's the case, if they need access to this dev link, this dev server, while I'm not running it, then yes, I need to invite them to Replit, give them read-only access to the project, because then they can come and turn they can run the preview, and that turns the development server on. But if I'm making changes and I just want to send this over to somebody and be like, hey, test this out for me real quick, it's like sending a live link to the development server, which again is a great thing that Replit does, that if I'm in Claude Code or if I'm doing something local on my machine, it's not something I can do. You would see some like localhost 500 URL or localhost whatever, and you could try to share that with somebody because it looks like it works, but it's not hosted anywhere. And so that's just local to your machine. One of the cool things about Replit is that it gives you these live development URLs that you can share with people while, again, your dev server's running.
I'm sure you've seen the meme out there, like first time vibe coders, like, it's like a text thread between like a buddy and like a new vibe coder and a technical person is like, hey, I just built this really cool stuff like locally on my machine, like here, go check it out here. And they send them the local host name. And it's like, no, that lives on your computer. No one else can see that. Just because you see it on your web browser doesn't mean that you can share that. And no, Replit makes it automatically here. I also use that quite a bit when I want to see what my application looks like on my mobile phone. So like, yeah, like, if it's like, I want to see like the web view is like pretty nice here in browser here, but like if I want to see how it's going to look on my phone for people, I will oftentimes use that. And there's a nice little QR code that comes up when you tap on that.
Any device. It's a great way to, maybe you want to check on, Firefox, or you want to check on Safari, or you want to check, some other browser, or you want to check, like Manny's saying, a different device type or something like that. Like those development links are always great because you can check it. It's basically the exact same thing as your publish environment, except for it's in a development server. And so you have your dev database connected. So, it's just a little bit controlled. It's kind of the staging environment that we were talking about before, where you can go and test and view and see things live as they are before you publish out into the real world. All right. What if I need to? Okay, that's the question we just asked. Yep.
And we can switch it to like non like a off topic stuff.
Yeah, we can go. I think at this point we have covered most of the version control stuff that needs to be covered. We could just take this anywhere for the last handful of minutes here. If folks have other thoughts or if there's questions from the past.
To that, hopefully they're still on the program. But earlier in the show, she was asking around, if they have 3 different Replit profiles, how do they merge all of that into one profile? I guess it's like they maybe want to see the activity of all their profiles in one place. I know we've talked about that last week, but any thoughts there?
Yeah, right now it's not possible. And I don't know when it will be possible. I am working on a task for this, but there's a lot of things to think about for how does it work. I think we did this in office hours last week, and maybe we'll spend some time in office hours tomorrow. If you are not joining us for office hours on Wednesdays inside of Discord, which is now open to core members, we're kind of getting together and having like these live build sessions, and we review work and we look at different people's projects. So tomorrow I'll probably show a couple things. We can maybe keep working on the merging 2 profiles like you're asking, or we can even look at the that live stream overlay thing and show. There were some questions about how Notion was connected and how some of that stuff works. I saw in the chat earlier too. So right now there's no easy way to connect those multiple profiles. It is something we're thinking about, but yeah, for right now it's just something you're gonna have to deal with not having access to. Let's see.
There was a question earlier from Brett around like, can a Replit only builder create a respectable GitHub profile, referring to a tech sales role? I guess my pushback on that, Brett, would be I'm not sure if you need a good GitHub profile anymore now that you have the Replit community profile. Like I feel like that serves the need for vibe coders like yourself. So I would say, like, do you need like a nice like popping GitHub profile? If you're a vibe coder, I think that's what the Replit community profile now does for you. So I would focus on showcasing that and building that out.
Yeah. The other thing is just connect your Replit projects to GitHub and sync them, and all that activity will show up on your GitHub profile. So, if you so desire, you can do that as well. As you saw, like on my GitHub profile, my activity has just totally, like tanked here. And it's very specifically because all of my contributions are now happening here. And I don't sync most of that work now because it's coming from Replit account to my GitHub. But there are some projects that make sense to have on GitHub and others that don't. And if you're working in other places, you might want to track that combined activity here somewhere. But yeah, all of these systems have their own limitations. In a perfect world, you'd just be able to have everything in one place. But, we don't live in a perfect world, so get over it.
This is an interesting one. Where do you see Replit in 3 to 5 years?
I don't see anything in 3 to 5 years, y'all. Y'all tripping. 3 to 5 months is what you need to be asking right
I know,
now.
right? It's going to change so much.
If I had to wish cast, right? Because I do think about some of this stuff. And we talked about this. I can't remember if it was in the Discord or if it was in one of the last live streams. But I see Replit as a potentially like Facebook, IBM scale company that is powering the infrastructure for basically all the creative infrastructure on the web, right? And what I mean by that is like all these new networks that are forming, all these new groups, all these like every app that you build, all these things that you guys are all building are going to become profitable businesses, cool tools, in the market. And we talked about this ecosystem of Replit kind of forming, right? We talked about it during the community profiles last week where, we think that our mission is not just to help you build software, but to take it to the market and, monetize that software. So I really see Replit becoming infrastructure that gives you all the access you need to like big tech stacks, but allowing you to build and manage business networks, monetization on top of that. And again, the better you get at monetizing those things, the more you're going to use Replit. And so I think that becomes like our growth strategy. So between the enterprise adoption and people building real things, I just see it as like the leading creative, think about Adobe Creative Cloud type thing, right? Like that's where I could see this in a handful of years, right? Where it is just the tool that everyone has to do their creative work in a new AI driven era. So I don't know if that's 3 to 5 years. I don't know if that's 2 years, but that's kind of the vision I see is like this Adobe Creative Cloud level suite of software that just lets you build anything and manage not just creative, but the revenue that's attached to it, the network that's belonging to it, owning the data that's associated with all that, just kind of, again, building these little easy to use mechanisms for you to take advantage of all that stuff. So,
for me, I almost like, I kind of think about like having like an always on chief of staff for my business type of experience. Like one, you're seeing that more and more platforms are setting up MCPs and connectors that Replit agent can work with. We just talked about Ramp last week. So now you can have your entire financial department be run through Replit agent. Two, I think all of people's context is going to be in Replit, or Replit agent is going to have access to that. So like not only your local files, but all of the files on your team's Google Drive and Notion and Slack. And then three, I think Replit agent is going to be better at more autonomous type of task. And so when I think about always on chief of staff, I mean, like, I want to be able to text Replit and say like, hey, I've been thinking about these ideas, like spin out like 10 different things and then let agent go to work on that, and then wake up in the morning with like plans, recommendations, research, like everything that like is top of mind for me. And then like decisions where I have to make decisions, but like always already having agent made some changes where like it's appropriate to make changes, kind of that type of discretion kind of thing. So
yeah. And I agree with that 100%. And I think that's like the primitive of what I was talking about, because if you have that, then what you have is this infrastructure to make money, generate revenue, create what you want. And what I think is different about that path with Replit versus like, let's say, some other tools is that is really the incentives behind it, right? Like right now, if you were to build those things in, well, most of the internet up until this point has been about building those things on other people's infrastructure, on other people's technology, right? So like if you build a distribution engine, you're building it on Facebook or a Facebook group, or you're on Substack, or you're on whatever. Whereas what I think Replit's going to allow you to do is to create your own version of these little things that will then evolve and scale into what you're talking about, Manny. Operations that you will talk to the agent natively to manage. Those could be businesses, those could be, groups, those could be like really anything, right? Anything that's powered by code. And again, as you earn and build and grow that network, hopefully the monetization opportunity, the data ownership, everything is, inside of your sandbox.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I see really the difference between what you can build here in Replit versus like in other places on the web, is that you're going to be able to own the output of everything you create, own the data, monetize it how you see fit, and really control that entire sandbox by just talking with the agent. And so again, I think, you're 100% right, Manny, is that like, it's just going to be this creative sidekick that's always there helping you accomplish whatever business or creative goals you have. And again, the better you get at monetizing those things, the more you're going to want to use the platform, which means Replit's going to grow. And that's the cycle we're seeing right now, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's the scalar cycle, I think, that we're looking at even currently.
Kurt, you're asking if we can introduce ourselves because he's new to these live streams. Kurt, well, first of all, welcome. Yes, I think you're right. We always assume that we have regulars coming back, Raymmar, but for the new folks,
Who are you guys?
Like, who the heck are these guys? What are they talking about? Git version control. Kurt, welcome to the stream. Amazing. I'm Manny. I'm on a community team with Raymmar. And I don't know, like I feel like I have like the coolest job. Like I get to work with Replit agent, build cool stuff, and then be out here like sharing what I learn and teaching all of you how to get the most out of Replit agent, and how to get the most out of AI. And talking about these big trends like AI, like disruption and advantages, and like how to put that to work for you and have AI be a tailwind to you. So that's how I'd kind of describe what I do, right? How about yourself?
Yeah. I always tell people that I'm obviously on the community team, and we help with live streams, education, community activations. But also the thing that I get excited the most about in my role is building the infrastructure for how we manage this community at the scale that it is. And so, like architecting these solutions, thinking about, hackathons and these community profiles and the CRM on the back end, and then really showing that knowledge, so like we always talk about like we're the front lines of, the Replit team, right? So like we are the community team, but we also interact with like all the different branches of the company. And then whatever change happens in the company, you all notice it. And then like you come and scream at us because we're like at the, like visible here. So anyway, we're part of the community team, part dev relationships, part content, part marketing, part events staff, like it's a really interesting time in the world of tech in this, especially in the community space. Cause I think a lot of things like when I tell people I'm on community, they kind of look at me like, what? Like, what does that mean? It's like, it's not this prestigious label. It's not member of technical staff or like lead AI engineer or whatever, but I think over the next few years, the work in community is going to be so important to like the success of these organizations. And so I don't know, Manny, like tying together, like I feel like we're kind of this glue that pulls together lots of different pieces, public facing, internal, project, technical, social, blah, blah, whatever. And they just, we mix them all together somehow into this thing that you all interact with. And that's, yeah.
Two additional things to add, Raymmar, thinking of what you just mentioned, but like number one, like almost like the voice of the customer internally Because when something gets
Mm.
rolled out, we're like, guys, what about this, this, and this? Because I know we're gonna get pinged on the stream for that, right? So we're like, some folks they can like, there's an announcement that goes out, like, okay, like, and then they don't hear anything from the direct users, but we know we gotta go live with you and like pitch you on something new for an hour, and we know we can't ignore your comments, and so we're always saying like, guys, we gotta mention this, we gotta talk about this, like you give us context here. How does and so like I feel like we're like the voice of the customer internally to share because we have the incentive to do so because we don't want to get like destroyed in the comments here in the chat because it's all live.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I always even at the peril of like pissing off the team, represent the user as if I was just a user. I know I'm here on the inside now, but I started just like you all, building in Replit, spending obnoxious amounts of money on my own, exploring, building startups, like I was doing consulting, agency work, that kind of stuff. And so I always kind of look at this, and I've been around a few of these creative cycles, like with other products, with other things. And so like I always feel like we represent you all to the internal team, right? Like we bring the perspective of like a real user, an active user into the organization in a way that helps the org see things that they might not see, but also to kind of make sure that the little guys and that the average users are also represented when big decisions are being made. And so, yeah, it's kind of a unique thing because I don't think this has existed. These roles have not existed for a long time in business. These are like new things that are coming together. Um, and yeah, I really do think the community we're building here is the moat, not just inside of Replit, but inside of this whole creator sphere. And so yeah, it's just I don't know. It's if I'm being very honest, it's a humbling opportunity to be on the inside of something like this, coming from the outside, coming from someone who was building and now seeing some of how this works and being able to kind of help shape and direct some of this is yeah, it is a dream job and it's incredibly humbling. But there's also a lot of stress and pressure and like there's a lot of expectations too. So yeah, anyway.
The other thing I would mention is that I feel like in some ways we are like your number one cheerleaders. So when you
Mm.
get a win, I feel like I got a win. And like I want to celebrate that. I want to share that. I think like Kelly here from Spell Strike Tactical, I remember she made her first sale on her app and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I got to memorialize this." So we put together like a trading card of sorts and you shared that out. When you guys build a cool demo, I want to share this with everybody. So like, you launch an app, you make $1, you launch a new business. I feel like we're like your number one cheerleaders out there, like trying to like help you and support you, and also help you grow, like giving you tips, like introducing you to potential new users, exposing you to the community, and getting great feedback on your app. So like we're like your number one cheerleaders, and we're also like your coaches from afar, and we just want to see you win, and we want to see you take that idea and turn it into an app and get users and make money and like just like tell like a really cool story.
Yeah. Manny and Raymmar explain all the new features every week, and it's really hard to keep up, so we need them.
You should see me before we do our shows. I'm like, where's the documentation for this? Okay, what about this? What about this? Okay, add that in the docs. I know I'm gonna get asked for this. Can you please explain this? Tell me. So, yeah, we're definitely like hustling
Well,
before some
and
of these
what was it
shows.
like during your This Week in Replit last Friday where you were like, "We just did this whole thing with Ramp," and I was like, "Huh?"
Right.
So like sometimes we don't even know what's going on over here. It's moving so fast. So this question here: does the Replit product team think of us as Karens? Not even in the slightest bit.
No, absolutely
There's
not.
nothing better than like real user feedback.
Hmm.
So I mean, there are some people, and I don't mean this like in our specific community, but like there are times when you're in like the product development cycle where everyone just like somebody just points out every single flaw and like every little thing. You're just like, "Nyah, nyah, 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 nyah." And just like anytime, like in life when that happens, like that person can be annoying. But when you're doing product development, especially at the scale of Replit, like you got to learn about the bugs. You have to talk to the users. You have to kind of like get this feedback. And so, no, I wouldn't think that at all. I like it's all super valuable feedback to have. And yeah, we appreciate all of it.
I regularly book product people on the showcase on Friday. They love it. They're always welcome. They love seeing the comments. That's one of the things. Like they're oftentimes surprised by how cool our community is and how fun it is. They're like, wow, like I've never been on camera like that before, and it's like it's so cool. Like getting to hang out with the chat. So they love it. We'll oftentimes grab the feature requests. There's a couple of good requests that came in. We'll grab that, we'll package that up, and we'll share that with the product teams. Always get a ton of hearts and love on all of that. So no, quite the opposite. Product team loves our community, and it's so helpful for them because think about this: like if you're rolling out a new feature, and you want to get feedback on that, what you'd have to do is you'd have to go and talk to people one on one. So usually what would happen is you like book a meeting with somebody, new user, you ask them a bunch of questions. What did you like? What didn't you like? Okay, in 1 hour, you've spoken to one person. But here, when we roll out a new feature, you have 200 people live telling you what they like, the problems that they had, the issues that they see, questions and then I roll all of that up. And essentially, like as a product manager, you've got feedback from 150 super engaged power users, like without doing anything. That is like that's super helpful for them. So that's why we're always encouraging, like, hey, like even if we don't get to your question or your comment, drop them in the chat because this will find its way into the product team and eventually might find its way into the product itself.
Yeah, and that's going back to scraping the comments since the beginning, listening all over. Like again, even just because we don't reply or see it, in real time, doesn't mean that you haven't been heard or that the thing hasn't been noted. So, and there's a lot of instances where, again, this is one of the reasons we're building some of the CRM on the background, where people from the team will come and ask us like, hey, do you guys know anybody who has these kind of projects? Or do you know anybody who's done X, Y, or Z? Or do you know anybody who's made money with their apps in Replit? Like all sorts of different questions or feedback on a new feature that's coming out. And if you're an ambassador, you get access to some of these early access programs. So as new features come out, you can kind of get early looks at those, and those also are really closed iteration loops that end up shaping the product as well. So there's a tons of ways that this feedback comes in, and almost never are we like looking at feedback from the user and saying like, oh, look at these people, how annoying they are. Like that just doesn't happen. Like it's the thing. Think about how many people are in the Discord or in X or wherever, and all they want is feedback on their, like all they wish is that somebody would give them feedback on their project. So when you start getting feedback, like yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Okay. Yeah, we love to see Raymmar sweat while fixing something that's broken live. We didn't build anything today. We just kind of walked through going back and forth, but we do need to think about what the next live build would be, huh?
Yeah, what suggestions in the chat, drop them in there.
Okay, let's see if there's anything else to look at here.
Check out.
There's Kizzer saying the product team reached out to me for feedback directly. They really care about power users. Yeah, I mean that's the bread and butter here, right? It's like that, and also we are the most active users internally. Like we, like I can't imagine how much money we spend internally on AI at Replit. But yeah, like we are. We talk about eating our own dog food all the time, and that just means like our directive is to use the tool in the process of our job as much as possible, because that is how we discover where the gaps are, what's missing, etc. And so yeah, we become the first line of feedback, and then you all become the next layer of feedback, and that layers on top and just gives us, like again, a really robust view of what we should be building and where the product should be headed.
I think one other thing that we're doing, in particular you, Raymmar, is I think you're trailblazing this new way of working that is enabled by vibe coding, where like you have folks that were not technical before that are now rolling out some serious like powerful features like with community profiles. That was you vibe coding that, and that was not possible like I would say like 6 months ago, and we're figuring that out, how to do that. What is the role of a vibe coder or agentic engineer now within an organization? What does that process look like? and then like what can we learn as we're doing that so that you can also learn as well, because no one's ever done this before. We've never had like like this swarm of non-technical people that are now able to write their own software and actually contribute back to a company's code base in a meaningful way. So I think we're kind of like figuring that out, and we're learning and we're sharing back with the community. We're dogfooding using our own tools to do that. And so that's another thing that I think is interesting about what we get to do here too.
Yeah, speaking of, I was just trying to see if I could add this to the scene. I wanted to show you guys that this is a real piece of something here. Let me just open it up full screen.
Bam, there we go. Let's see.
But yeah,
Breaking.
we were just showing you this tool here that I was playing with, and just to show it's a real live thing that works on the stream, you know. And so just as we build, you know, like again, like pioneering new things, this is something that I can tell you many OBS streamers, many streamers need something like this that just doesn't exist. And to be able to build this thing on the fly, to be able to have this type of thing playing in and out. And again, yeah, I don't know, like Manny, what you said about pioneering new things. I think about that all the time, where like, regardless of what happens with AI, with this technology, where all this is headed, what's happening at Replit is that we are for sure showing or building models for like how individual contributors amplify their work with the use of AI, because we do use it so much internally. And so to be able to build and show and have meaningful output, like I can't even imagine what some of these enterprise teams are doing, giving folks like me inside their org the ability to just build. You end up with these, again, things like these community profiles or these chat scrape tools, or, you know, you guys haven't even seen the back end of what's happening on the community CRM or some of these other tools that we're playing with. And so, yeah, it's just a fascinating time to be thinking and to be a systems person with design background, with web development background, with marketing and sales and video production background, and somehow being able to unify all that. It is really showing the future work in my mind. Like this is the future of, you know, how things are going to play. And I can be sure about that, right? We're rewriting the rules for how companies that are AI native work. I don't know where the technology goes, but you know, Manny, you and I are for sure on the front lines here inside the org, and that's cool to watch.
I think we're maybe 6 months ahead of where everybody else is going to be soon. Because we're like, of course, we're dogfooding all the time, but this is where everything's going to be going. So it's interesting to get a glimpse of where the entire enterprise space is going to be going.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay, I think that's it. I think that's it. Yes. Do you think Replit agent will actually understand product strategy, not just code? I think it does at a certain level already. Just because there's so much prior art and work on that. It doesn't mean it understands it in the context of what you need it to do. But yeah, I not only that, but then, you know, as we get into this more autonomous stuff, who knows how far this goes. So
I feel like Replit agent is, yeah, pretty good at product strategy and strategy thinking in particular. Like a couple streams back, I was thinking about pricing strategies for my app, and pricing is a very complicated topic. You have people, the consultants that are just like, just do that. They advise startups and companies on how to price their products. And it's actually pretty complex in terms of how you do that. And Agent, I think that did a really good job of walking me through the pricing levels and like the positioning. So I think it's already there. Given that you give it enough context and you give it enough direction in terms of what you're after, I think Agent is already doing a good job here.
yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. Because you can often ask, like, what am I missing? What should I be thinking
Mhm.
about? What's the monetization? What's a good monetization strategy? Like, if you were thinking about this, you know, so like, it's not necessarily just writing the code. It has, you know, because it's an LLM, like it has access to all the other information. So you can ask it and really,
Mhm.
you know, get most of what you want from a strategy standpoint out of it with the context of your project. So that's, yeah.
And oftentimes in strategy, like in these the strategy discussions, what I've have found in working with consultants in the past, and actually having done consulting myself, is that oftentimes the answer emerges from having a conversation in a structured way. And so, like almost like this question, like what features should I add? Like, well, you can list out the 10 features that you're seeing from your users, and you can have a conversation with agent. It's like, hey, I have these 10 features. Which one of them should I add? And then agent's going to ask you like, okay, well, what is it that you want to do? Where do you see this going? Who's your main target audience? Can you add these features without making it too crowded for that target audience, and engage in a back and forth conversation? And after that, the answer will emerge, and then agent will kind of guide you along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, and I saw somebody ask a question earlier about pricing strategy and how they bill for this stuff. That might be interesting for us to do an episode on some of that, how you
Mm,
can charge for your work inside of Replit.
mm.
Um, because I think there's a ton of different strategies, and that may be worth a discussion or even bringing in like a special guest. So yeah.
Mm.
Um,
And you're referring to if I want to sell my vibe coding services to someone, how do I price set the package and all
Correct.
that? Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, that would be
Yeah,
interesting.
the freelance model, the agency model, the fixed cost pricing model, the hourly model, the time and material. Like there's all sorts of different models for how you can price this stuff. And it might be worth, a deep dive on just some of those different strategies and how you might want to package or position yourself when you're selling this stuff, especially now that you have these profiles and these certificates and things that you can kind of validate your effort and your track record inside of some of this. So yeah, that would be probably a good thing to queue up at some point.
There's a guy, John Chaney, that is a big Replit user, and he's been like on My First Million, or not My First Million, another big podcast. He's talking about how like he's selling AI services or AI transformation using Replit. So maybe we can get him on the
Yeah.
show and ping him. But I
Well,
think,
and I
yeah.
also still think like, you know, I still think there's a missing piece in what we do that would really resonate with the audience, which is one, starting from scratch with the idea through the whole process on something fairly complex. And what I mean by that is like a lot of times the demos we see are like, these one shot prompts, or they're these like little kind of simple product ideas because it's a little complicated and it might take time to actually get to that thing. But when you're building real software, there's like the idea of maintaining, managing, optimizing. Like there's this long form side of things, which I think a lot of you all are interested in, that doesn't get a lot of kind of attention from us from a content standpoint, mostly because it's not that riveting, right? So it's like maybe stuff that we'll have to do in the office hours or on different streams or on different in different formats. Um, but I think showing like the iteration of these products and showing how things go from what you got as the agent initial output to like what I just showed you on stream with like a working production level control center that we can manage data with. And the problem is it takes time, right? So
Hmm.
it's one of those things that like it would start on one stream and then it would continue on another session, and then maybe a couple weeks later you would see some more things. And so like we're still trying to figure out how to do some of that and not make it like, oh, we're watching paint dry or like we're watching the
Hmm.
grass grow. And so like but I think
Or
that's a big piece of selling and monetizing is like not just, hey, how do you get this output, but like how do I take this output and turn it into something that my client's going to love, right?
mhm.
Something that like I can actually charge money for. And those refinements, that like detail process is where like you will make your money in this business. And I don't know how to share that without really doing like just long sessions of streaming and,
Mhm.
like times where like a lot of times this work happens just at random hours, and so like,
Right. Or that, or just another thought, following a cohort through that process. Like you
mhm,
almost have like 20 builders that we're just gonna follow for like a couple of shows and episodes, and They're going to show us what they built or what they're doing, what they learned, and all the iterations through the way until they hit certain milestones. I think that would be interesting, like almost like a reality show for vibe coders kind of thing. But
Yeah.
like through that process, that'd be cool too.
Well, when we did the race to revenue, I could imagine smaller cohorts like that just kind of coming through cycles.
Mhm.
I was talking about this with somebody yesterday, new here on the partnerships team, actually, about something like that and what would it look like for us to do, you know, 8-week cycles or something like that, where we take you from front to back,
Ooh.
like building, monetizing, distribution, marketing, like all the different pieces of it. Um, in some kind of, maybe whether it's in the office hours, maybe it's some of the build your business stuff that, like we've teased in the past. So I don't know, but things are coming in this space, right? Things are for sure coming in this realm that we are working on behind the scenes.
So many great ideas. And I feel like with this community, dude, like, oh man, I just get so excited. Like you can already see people being lit up by this concept. So let us get settled. Let us get this whole like some other like things in place. I think you're gonna see a lot of cool concepts come because Reimar's a super creative dude, man. You get some like wild ideas. So like once we get settled with like all of our key components like live streaming, like all like the details that we're talking about, I think we're just gonna rip with some really cool concepts.
Yes. And I could just know there's lots of things behind the scenes that are coming together. So when you see some of this stuff pop its head up, like these community profiles, that was under works for weeks, if not months before, it broke the surface. So just know that there's things that are being worked on now that, you all may not see for a handful of weeks or even months, but, just give us some time. We'll give you a little sneak peek every once in a while. That's we enjoy, like we enjoy dropping some little nuggets for Alpha Fridays, or for those who hang out on the streams with us towards the end like this, where yeah, where we just want to like kind of share and open things up for what's coming.
Mind blown Tuesdays and Alpha Fridays.
That's right.
Yeah, in the meantime, keep building up your power ranking on the profiles. I feel like that's gonna be like a sorting mechanism of sorts.
Uh, yes. We have the sorting hats. We need to have the houses of Replit.
Hey, that'd be kind of cool because we were talking about like different personalities or like avatars for people. It's like, oh, you have like this avatar. You're a beginner, but you're trending really well. Like, here's your icon or something.
Yeah, yeah. All right, folks. This has been a blast, and we appreciate you all. But now, all good things must come to an end. So
I
that
didn't think it was possible to make version control and get interesting, right? But you pulled it off today, dude. That's always like one of the driest topics ever. Like, oh my gosh, but you nailed it.
well, hopefully you all enjoyed that, and thanks everyone for watching. We will be back tomorrow in Discord, replit.com/community. And right there's two links. There's the Become an Ambassador link, and there's the Join Discord link. If you click the Join Discord link, log in with Replit, you'll be able to connect your Discord account as long as you have a core or higher plan. And from there, we'll see you tomorrow. We do them at the same time as a stream inside of office hours. We do plan on experimenting with different times for some of this stuff, but that's where the action happens. And then Friday, we've got a showcase stream with Manny, and that's kind of the cadence right now. Yeah, we'll see you guys tomorrow in office hours or Friday on the stream. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye, everybody.